Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders, they went out there and they won a very interesting game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you may ask yourself, why am I talking about a game with two of the worst teams in the NFL? Because of draft capital and where you're going to be placed in the NFL draft. The New York Giants now hold the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. That could have potentially been the Las Vegas Raiders. They were on a 10-game losing streak heading into the Jacksonville Jaguars game. They went out there and they defeated Jacksonville Jaguars 19-14. And instead of having the first overall pick, you now have the 6th overall pick. You now have the New York Giants, the New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, and Cleveland Browns all in front of you. If you're a Raiders fan, I understand the frustration. All season long, you have heard, let's go out there and tank for Shedeur Sanders. You see the pictures on Instagram, Shedeur Sanders on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, going out there and making tweets about the Las Vegas Raiders. And it seems like they're not going to end up with the quarterback that they want for yet a second season. This happened last year. They won meaningless games coming towards the end of the stretch, and they missed out on a franchise quarterback. I'm not going to come on this channel and condone tanking. But for certain teams, they're not good enough to go out there and win NFL playoff games. And that's for the Las Vegas Raiders. They have defensive pieces. You look at Malcolm Kuntz, has missed his entire season, but he's a very good pass rusher. Look at what he did last year playing alongside Max Crosby. Max Crosby is one of the best defensive players in the NFL. And they went out there in this free agency period and they brought in Christian Wilkins, one of the best defensive linemen to have in the NFL. So you have 3 pass rushers that can get to the quarterback. You still have Tyree Wilson. I believe that he's a bust, but it's a chance that he can develop in the future. You don't have to move on from him right now. He's not 100% just a scrub. He can get to the quarterback on a rare occurrence. There's still some potential there with him. The linebackers with the Raiders, they're solid. The defense with the Las Vegas Raiders is not bad. What is hurting them is the fact that their offense is terrible. Part of the reason why their offense is terrible, you hired Luke Getsy, and they were never supposed to have Luke Getsy as the offensive coordinator. The contract negotiations fell through with Cliff Kingsbury. So he walked out the door and he went to the Washington Commanders. They could not come down to a dollar amount. Walk in Luke Getsy, one of the worst offensive coordinators the NFL has ever seen. They fired him over 2 months ago, and now you have an interim offensive coordinator. You're stuck in a bad situation until the end of the season on the offensive end, but the Raiders knew that. Their offensive line has been bad over the last few years, especially on the right side. You need to bring in some more interior offensive linemen. You have Colton Miller, who is a very good left tackle. You have Jackson Powers-Johnson. There's something with him in the interior of the offensive line, but you need to bring in some more offensive linemen. You have one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL, maybe the worst rushing offense in the NFL. Statistically, they are, because you're depending on Zamir White and Alexander Madison. But part of that is because your offensive line is terrible. But the biggest problem with the Raiders right now is not coaching. It's not the defense. It's not the offensive line. It's not the running backs. It's the fact that you don't have a franchise quarterback in a division full of franchise quarterbacks. You have Justin Herbert with the Los Angeles Chargers. You have Patrick Mahomes with the Kansas City Chiefs. You have those key guys to look at, and you have Bo Nix, who is looking like he's going to be a franchise player for the Denver Broncos for years to come. And when you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, you have Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, who they will move on from this offseason. So you have Aidan O'Connell. Right now, Aidan O'Connell is a better player than Desmond Ridder, and he's a better player than Gardner Minshew, but he's not a franchise quarterback. Yes, he had a very good game against the Kansas City Chiefs on Black Friday. They almost won that game if he does not go out there and bobble the snap from the interior offensive lineman. Maybe they go out there, they kick a field goal, they win that game. But when I look at this situation with the Raiders, you know that Aidan O'Connell's not going to be your guy long term. Aidan O'Connell did this last season. Aidan O'Connell is not a 100% terrible quarterback. He's better than the majority of the backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He looked okay at points and times last season, even though majority of his production came against a bad Chargers team with a terrible head coach with Brandon Staley, and they were dealing with injuries. But we look at Aidan O'Connell this season. Before he got injured with a bone bruise in his knee, he looked okay at times. But he's not going to be your franchise guy. With them potentially holding the 6th or even 10th pick in this NFL draft class, you're not going to be able to select the quarterback that you want. And the Raiders have been stuck in this situation over the last few years. They tried to trade up to get Jaden Daniels, but it did not materialize. You look at what Coach Pierce has done with Jaden Daniels in the past. He coached him up in the past in college with Arizona State. He tried to bring him over, but they cannot work out a trade. Every single year coming the NFL draft, the Las Vegas Raiders have whispers that they're trying to go up there and trade for a quarterback. That is not by accident. That's an inside source that is leaking that out. And now look at this situation. They went with Brock Bowers in this year's draft class. Home run hitter, great tight end. You can't tell me that if Michael Penix Jr. was there for the taking, that they would have not selected the quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. They would have brought him in. But the Atlanta Falcons, they selected him instead. And this year's draft class, in my opinion, is only 2 quarterbacks that are worthy of a first-round pick. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. That's it. No one else. Maybe Quinn Ewers or a guy like Carson Beck, but I believe the first round is too rich for both of those guys. I look at the Raiders. You have the pieces. Jacoby Myers is not a true number 1 wide receiver, but he's very good enough. He put up good numbers with the Patriots when they had a terrible quarterback and a terrible offensive coordinator. And he's been the only saving grace coming out of that situation with Josh McDaniels, who is part of the reason why the Raiders are in this situation. When I read reports about fire Antonio Pierce, he's a terrible coach. Antonio Pierce never got a fair chance with the Raiders. Let's just be real here for a second. This man was an interim head coach on the back half of last season when they brought in Josh McDaniels, who has been a terrible coach everywhere he has been in the NFL without Bill Belichick. He's the definition of a system coach. The only reason he has had success in the NFL is because of his time with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. He was terrible with the Denver Broncos. Do you know about the stories with Josh McDaniels when him tearing down the legend pictures around the building and screaming at everyone because he doesn't know how to talk to people? He's a miserable human being to be around. He was terrible with the then St. Louis Rams. But he comes back to the Las Vegas Raiders, gets his last head coaching gig in the NFL, and he ruined this franchise. Now, I'm not saying that Derek Carr was going to lead them to the Super Bowl because he never did in his tenure in the past. But Derek Carr was good enough to get you to the NFL playoffs. One of the darkest things that ever happened with the Las Vegas Raiders was the fact those emails leaked with Coach Gruden. They had to go out there, they fired Coach Gruden. And then you went with Rich Bisaccia. He comes in, he helps lead them to a playoff run. They lose in the first round against the Cincinnati Bengals. They bring in Josh McDaniels. That is more so on ownership than anyone else. And I look at this situation right now. That is what has led to this with the Raiders. You still don't have your quarterback of the future. And maybe you can go out there in free agency and bring in a guy like Justin Fields, bring in a guy like Sam Darnold. Maybe that's the situation. It's not all doom and gloom for the Raiders. If you're panicking over this pick, I understand why. But you have talent. You have Max Crosby. You have a guy in Malcolm Kuntz who should be able to come back next season and be a very good playmaker. You have Christian Wilkins. You have Brock Bowers. You have Trey Tucker, one of the most misutilized players in the NFL. He's a great deep threat, but they can't get him the football because the quarterback play is so terrible with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have something here, but they don't have the right quarterback in place. They need to go out there, bring in some more offensive linemen. They're going to have over $100 million in cap space. They could possibly go out there, bring in some brand new offensive linemen, bring in a guy like T. Higgins, bring in a running back through the NFL draft. Preferably, that's what I would do. I would not go out there and spend big-time money on a running back that has NFL mileage on his body. Go out there and select your running back in the 3rd or 4th round, bring him in behind a very good and stout offensive line, and bring in an elite offensive coordinator. That is easier said than done. But when I look at the Raiders right now, if they're in a tough spot quarterback-wise, this game is going to be wide. Aidan O'Connell has done it yet again. And if you're an Aidan O'Connell fan, you may get your wish next season. They may have to build around Aidan O'Connell. But when I look at the quarterback options, there are going to be some quarterbacks out there like Sam Darnold, like Justin Fields. You can bring one of those guys in. Stay the hell away from Kirk Cousins. Don't even think about it. Stay away from Daniel Jones. Don't even look at those type of quarterbacks. But I am enamored with Justin Fields. Not to say that he will be a franchise quarterback with the Raiders, but he could possibly come in and have success with the Raiders, similar to what Geno Smith has had with the Seattle Seahawks, similar to what Baker Mayfield has done with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we will see. But I look at this situation right now with the Raiders. Aidan O'Connell may have just cost him their future. But shout out to him. This is a man that's playing for his job in the NFL, and the same with all the players. I'm not going to come on here and get upset and say the players are dumb and that the coaches are stupid for not losing football games. I just want you guys to understand something. If the Raiders would go out there and they was lose out for the rest of the season, there would be a real possibility that Antonio Pierce would not be a coach in the NFL. And he's still playing for his job, because let's just say the Raiders do move on from him, a lot of coaches will be vouching for him. Look at what Max Crosby said last year. If we don't bring him back, I'm done. I want to be traded. That's what your best player is saying. So Antonio Pierce, say what you want to say about him, but I do believe that he has the right mindset with the Las Vegas Raiders. Does it suck to see them win a meaningless game? Yes, it does if you're a Raiders fan, because you want to have the first overall pick. But I'm going to say this right here, and no disrespect to Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, but there's not a home run possibility that they're going to go out there and be for sure great picks in the NFL. We've seen this over and over again in the past. Look at Caleb Williams right now. Many say he'll be a generational talent. He has looked better over the last month. But look at the Chicago Bears. They've only won 4 games. We saw with Trevor Lawrence, his rookie season ended with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's not a foregone conclusion that those guys are going to come in and immediately change the Las Vegas Raiders, but it does suck to see the Raiders be stuck in this situation year in and year out. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Las Vegas Raiders, and did they make a major mistake by beating the Jacksonville Jaguars? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.